Hi, my name is Lilian Crum, and I'm an assistant professor of graphic design and the director of the graphic design program at Lawrence Technological University. Today, I will be discussing the role of people in influencing corporate responsibility and the relationships between brand communication and the company's core values. The COVID-19 pandemic and the fervent momentum of the Black Lives Matter movement in spring and summer of 2020 pressured brands to address the dramatic social, economic, and behavioral shifts that have been transforming our world. While some brands expressed their solidarity through their brand narratives, others communicated seemingly inauthentic messages and were criticized for their hypocrisy. Core values are the ethos of a company or organization that inform all of the company's practices. In the Core Values Matter section from AIGA's Design Futures, Meredith Davis argues that, quote, social media shifted the power relationship between people and companies, and that, quote, advocacy is driven by digital technology as people rely more on their social networks than on organizations when forming opinions. Further, quote, 2/3 of consumers feel businesses are as responsible as government for driving positive change. Meredith Davis also argues that, quote, research shows that quality, reliability, and transparency are the core values people around the world feel are most important for brands to embody. She adds that a sense of distrust is created when people perceive distance between a brand's aspirational values and their core values. As people were confined to their homes because of COVID-19 in spring 2020, social media usage surged as people were seeking a sense of connection. With social media helping to facilitate public scrutiny of brand policies, practices, and organizational structures, bottom-up forces that put pressure on corporate responsibility have been particularly powerful. In an effort to convey a sense of solidarity with the public as everyone became affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, several big brands modified their logos to express physical distancing. Many also created commercials that communicated that we're all in this together, a message that quickly became empty in its overuse. Consumers identified that the outward-facing messaging of many of these companies were at odds with the internal policies and practices, and criticism through social media took off. In a Fast Company article aptly titled, Social Distancing Logos Are the Design Equivalent of Thoughts and Prayers, Evan Nicole Brown argues that vague marketing statements are not enough, and that consumers instead want to see companies support workers and help fight against the virus. Among these examples, McDonald's Brazil received the most criticism due to their lack of guaranteed paid sick leave in the company. As a result of the uproar, McDonald's adjusted this policy. Everlane is a clothing brand known for its tagline, exceptional quality, ethical factories, radical transparency, and it markets itself on being honest about its product markup and its ecological footprint. This ethical image quickly unraveled this past spring for union busting during a pandemic and for anti-Black behavior occurring within the company. Bernie Sanders' tweet helped fuel the public criticism. The company has since committed to a series of changes, including anti-racist training and reviewing pay inequity. In June 2020, when brands rushed to communicate their support for the Black Lives Matter movement, Nike quickly unveiled a 60-second ad that modified its slogan to read, "For once, don't do it," asking Americans to not turn their back on racism. While according to an ACE Metrics study, the ad was considered empowering by 60% of respondents. It was also perceived as being exploitative, however, hijacking the situation to sell their products. The brands that have been affected in these movements have been those who have not just been concerned with expressing company values to preserve their image, but rather those who actively strategize to create impact through action, are transparent about their internal policies and practices, who retool their products or services to support marginalized communities, who pause or pivot to amplify other voices, and those who commit to long-term tangible solutions. The beauty brand Glossier, for example, invested in action by committing to donate $500,000 to organizations focusing on combating racial injustice, as well as allocating $500,000 in grants to Black-owned beauty businesses. EA Games also donated $1 million to racial injustice organizations and launched a company-wide paid volunteer day on Juneteenth. It is critical that we consider the optics around these actions to ensure that the commitments are not exploiting the causes that they support. Further, looking forward, it is also imperative that these actions are not simply reactive. They must be sustainable. So soon after these pledges have been made, long-term action and impact is yet to be determined. So how can these changes be sustained long-term, transcending feel-good marketing tactics and superficial brand messaging? Looking forward, sustainable impact necessitates larger structural changes to companies' policies and practices. As Design for Social Innovation would suggest, these changes will need to be ongoing and iterative and occur at a systems level in order to be sustainable. These changes should be design-led, acknowledging grassroots initiatives, the re-envisioning of the future, and consider the interconnectedness of social, political, and economic and environmental systems. For designers practicing today or students studying design, whether communication design or allied disciplines, it is important that they consider their role beyond being a conduit for communicating corporate messaging. Design can help define a company's core values, and when designing, we should be designing with, not just for, people. Thank you.